My hands rested protectively over my swollen belly as I carried a small thermal bag through the corridors of Metropolitan General Hospital. The bag contained a turkey and Swiss sandwich on sourdough Daniel's favorite, with the expensive mustard he always insisted on. I was 8 months pregnant, exhausted from swollen ankles and back pain, but determined to surprise my husband with lunch. The hospital smelled of disinfectant, and echoing footsteps bounced against the walls. The September afternoon sun poured through the tall windows, turning the linoleum floors into strips of light and shadow. As I walked, I remembered the morning. Daniel had kissed my forehead gently, his palm spread across my belly as he whispered, "Take care of our little miracle." His dark eyes had been soft, full of a tenderness that convinced me once again that everything we had endured to get here was worth it. We had tried for years, endured heartbreak, survived 2 miscarriages. Now, finally, we were close to meeting our daughter. That thought gave me strength, even as my ankles protested with each step. I approached the cardiology wing, the place where Daniel had spent most of his career. His office sat at the far end of the hallway nameplate, gleaming under fluorescent lights, Dr. Daniel Carter Cardiology. I felt a small swell of pride in my chest. This was my husband, the man everyone respected, the one who had always been so confident and sure. I had supported him through sleepless nights of residency, stood beside him at every milestone. The hallway buzzed with activity. Nurses moved quickly between patient rooms. Monitors beeped in rhythmic patterns, and the distant sound of an intercom announced codes and calls. My belly tightened slightly, a false contraction, but I pressed forward. Almost there, I thought. He will smile when he sees me. He will say, "Thank you, Rachel, you always think of me." I reached his door, balanced the thermal bag in one hand, and knocked softly. Silence. I checked my watch. 2:15. His schedule showed he should be free now. I waited another moment, then tried the handle. The door gave way with ease. The thermal bag slipped from my hand and thudded against the floor. For a heartbeat, my brain could not process what my eyes were seeing. Daniel was pressed against his desk, his white coat open, his hands tangled in auburn hair. A woman, her face was instantly familiar. Olivia, my sister. She was perched on his desk, her legs wrapped around his waist, kissing him with a hunger I had never seen directed at me. Medical charts scattered around them, pens rolled across the floor. His hands, the same hands that had caressed my pregnant belly that morning, roamed over her with ease, as though this was not the first time, not even close. Olivia's hair was tousled, her lipstick smeared her eyes half-lidded in satisfaction. Her skirt was hiked up, her blouse open just enough to expose pale skin that glowed under the harsh office lights. She did not look ashamed. She looked triumphant. A strangled sound escaped my throat, half sob, half gasp. They broke apart quickly, but the damage was done. Daniel's face went pale, then flushed red. Olivia slid off the desk, smoothing her blouse, but her smile curved cruelly. Rachel. Daniel began voice cracking, but before he could take a step toward me, Olivia spoke. "Well, this is awkward," she said lightly, as if she had been caught borrowing a shirt without asking instead of destroying my marriage. Her eyes locked on mine, sharp and predatory. I staggered back, one hand flying to my belly. My heart thundered in my chest, my breathing came shallow and fast. The room tilted, the walls seemed to close in. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. "Do not say my name," I whispered hoarsely, though I was not sure if I spoke to Daniel or Olivia. Olivia laughed. "He has not loved you in years, Rachel." Her words were crisp, cruel, and intentional. "He only stayed because he felt sorry for you after your miscarriages." The words hit harder than any physical blow. My knees buckled and I gripped the doorframe for support. My sister, my husband, together. The betrayal was so sharp it stole my breath. Daniel reached out a hand as if to steady me, but I jerked back. "Do not touch me," I hissed. His eyes were full of something I could not stand to see. Not love, not anger. Pity. I looked at Olivia, whose smile had widened as she watched my world collapse. She tilted her head, her auburn hair falling across her shoulder. "You are pathetic," she said softly. "Look at you waddling around like a cow. Do you really think a man like Daniel could ever be satisfied with someone like you?" The words sliced into me, but rage sparked through the haze of shock. My body trembled as adrenaline coursed through me. For a moment, I wanted to claw at her face, scream until the walls shook, but my hand instinctively pressed harder against my belly, against the small life inside me that depended on me to stay strong. Olivia leaned closer to Daniel, her hand grazing his chest. "See, Rachel, he belongs to me. He has for months. You just never noticed." I could not breathe. I turned toward the door, desperate to escape before my legs gave out completely. Behind me, Olivia's voice followed, dripping with mockery. "He has not loved you in years. You are just an obstacle in his life now." The fluorescent lights blurred. My heart pounded in my ears. My baby shifted inside me as if sensing my terror. I pressed my palm firmly against my stomach, whispering a silent promise: "I will protect you. I will not let them destroy us." My vision cleared enough to focus on Olivia's smirk, Daniel's silence, the broken sandwich bag on the floor. And in that instant, I understood everything I thought was solid in my life had just shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. "Tell me in the comments where you are watching this from," I said softly to the audience, who will one day hear my story. Because this is where it all began, the day I learned that the people closest to me could also be the ones to destroy me. When I was a little girl, I used to believe that family was unbreakable. My sister Olivia and I grew up in the same house, shared the same birthdays and holidays, yet somehow we were never truly close. Olivia was 3 years older, sharper in her words, and colder in her gestures. She had always resented how our parents praised me for being gentle, hardworking, and studious. While she sought attention through defiance, I tried to earn it through achievement. That unspoken rivalry threaded itself through our lives, surfacing at graduations, weddings, and family dinners. I should have seen the warning signs, but I wanted to believe that blood tied us together. Years later, when I met Daniel Carter during my volunteer years at the hospital, I thought I had finally found my anchor. He was a young resident, then tall, confident, and possessed with those dark eyes that seemed to see straight into my soul. He asked me out after only a week of working together. I still remember how he leaned against the counter of the nurse's station and said, "You should let me take you out for coffee. You deserve more than late-night vending machine snacks." That first date turned into a relationship and soon into a marriage proposal under a canopy of twinkling lights. I believed in him the way one believes in air, essential and invisible. Our wedding day felt like the start of something permanent. Olivia had stood beside me as maid of honor, smiling tightly, her eyes glinting with something I could not quite name. My Uncle Henry had walked me down the aisle since my father had passed years before, and I remember the way Daniel squeezed my hand as if promising safety and eternity. In those years that followed, we faced heartbreak after heartbreak. 2 miscarriages carved holes into my spirit, leaving me with grief I thought I might never survive. But Daniel held me through each loss, whispering that someday we would have our miracle. He stroked my hair through nights of silent tears, rubbed my back when cramps left me doubled over. His kindness felt like proof that love could endure anything. When we finally saw the positive test that third time, I collapsed into his arms in our kitchen, sobbing as he lifted me off the floor. He cried too, his tears wetting my hair as he whispered, "This is it. This time it will work. We are going to meet our baby." For months, we lived in that fragile joy. I decorated the nursery in soft yellows and grays, unwilling to commit to pink or blue. Daniel assembled the crib late one Saturday, cursing under his breath as he tried to follow the instructions, making me laugh through swollen feet and morning sickness. Every doctor's visit became a milestone we celebrated. Olivia, meanwhile, drifted in and out of our lives. She had recently taken a job as nursing supervisor at Metropolitan General. At family gatherings, she offered stiff congratulations, but always with an edge, a glance that lingered too long on my belly, a smile that never reached her eyes. She seemed to enjoy needling me with comments about how tired I looked, how difficult it must be to juggle graduate school while expecting. I brushed it off as typical sibling rivalry, the same jealousy that had followed us since childhood. I never imagined she could be capable of more. Daniel had once told me that Olivia admired him, that she often sought his advice on hospital procedures. I had trusted that. I had wanted to believe that maybe their working relationship could soften the icy tension between us. Now remembering how she always managed to join our lunch table in the hospital cafeteria, how her perfume sometimes lingered faintly on his jackets, I realized my blindness. I had wanted a perfect picture. I had wanted to ignore the shadows creeping at the edges. Looking back, I remember one afternoon about 6 months into my pregnancy. I had been rushed to the hospital with what turned out to be false labor. Daniel had not been there when I needed him. He told me he was caught in surgery, but he had come home later, flustered, his shirt smelling faintly of perfume. I had dismissed it then, choosing to trust him rather than give in to suspicion. That moment now burned in my memory as the truth became impossible to deny. My family had not been perfect. It had been a careful construction of hope layered over secrets. Olivia had always wanted what I had. Daniel had always basked in admiration. Together, they had found each other in the shadows of my trust. In the office doorway that afternoon, I realized everything I had built was built on sand. And yet, even as betrayal carved through me, I felt the small flutter of my daughter inside, reminding me that life was still within me. She was the reason I had to stand, the reason I had to breathe. She was the reason I would fight. What I had thought was secure had been an illusion, but the child I carried was real. She was mine, and I would protect her against them both if I had to. The sound that tore from my throat was half scream, half sob, a raw cry that seemed to echo off the sterile walls of the office. My eyes locked on Daniel, and for a moment I saw the man who had once promised to protect me through every storm, but his silence now was louder than any confession. "How could you, Daniel?" I choked out my voice, cracking under the weight of betrayal. My hand clutched my belly instinctively, a barrier between my unborn daughter and the scene unfolding before us. He opened his mouth, but no words came. His gaze dropped to the floor. His jaw tightened and his hands trembled at his sides. He could not look at me, and that silence was an answer in itself. Olivia's laugh sliced through the tension, sharp and cold. "He does not want you anymore, Rachel. He wants me." Her words landed like daggers, each syllable twisting deeper into my chest. I staggered back, pressing into the doorframe as if it could hold me upright. My world tilted, my vision blurred, and a pressure spread across my stomach that made me gasp. My daughter shifted inside me as if sensing the turmoil, the betrayal, the anguish. "You are lying," I whispered, my throat tight with tears. "Tell her she is lying, Daniel. Tell her you love me." I searched his face for something, anything, a spark of the devotion he had shown me through years of struggle. But he stood motionless, his eyes clouded with something worse than hate-pity. Olivia stepped closer, her heels clicking against the tile, her smirk widening with satisfaction. "Pathetic," she said, her voice dripping venom. "Look at you clinging to a man who has already chosen someone better. You are nothing but a burden now, Rachel. You are swollen, slow, and useless." The words struck harder than I imagined possible. My knees weakened, my breath came shallow, and my hands shook as I pressed against the swell of my belly. I could feel tears burning in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of her. Olivia tilted her head, studying me the way a predator studies prey. "He belongs to me," she declared, resting a hand on Daniel's arm. "He has for months." Her nails grazed his sleeve as if to remind me that I had already lost. Rage surged through my veins, hot and overwhelming, colliding with fear in a storm that threatened to crush me. My chest tightened, my pulse raced, and the fluorescent lights above blurred into streaks. I felt faint, unsteady, as if the ground itself had been ripped away. My baby's kick jolted me back, reminding me that I was not alone, that I carried a fragile life depending on me. Summoning every ounce of strength, I forced myself to straighten my voice, trembling but louder than before. "Get away from him!" I said the words rough, my throat raw. Olivia only smiled, a cruel, knowing smile. "He has not loved you in years, Rachel. He told me everything. He stayed out of pity after your miscarriages, not love. He stayed because you were too fragile, too weak to be left alone." Daniel flinched, but still did not deny it. The betrayal was complete. The man I thought I knew, the sister I thought was family, stood united in silence and scorn while I crumbled. My chest heaved, the air thick, my ears roaring with the sound of my own heartbeat. I pressed harder against my belly, whispering to my daughter in my mind, "Hold on, baby. We will get through this. We have to." Olivia's voice slithered through the room like poison, each syllable calculated to cut me deeper than the last. "You really thought he was still in love with you?" she sneered, her eyes glinting with amusement. "Look at yourself, Rachel. You waddle around like a cow, swollen and pathetic, and you expect a man like Daniel to want you." The words stung with a force that made my chest ache. My hands trembled as I pressed them protectively over my belly, but I refused to let her see me collapse. "Daniel, tell her to stop," I begged, my voice cracking my eyes, pleading for him to step forward to defend me, to show me even the smallest shred of loyalty. But he only lowered his gaze to the floor, his silence loud enough to crush me. Olivia smirked at his refusal, her lips curling into something vicious. "See, Rachel, even he cannot deny it. He does not want you. He has told me so many times." She stepped closer to me, her perfume heavy and nauseating, and lowered her voice to a cruel whisper. "Do you know what he says when you cry at night? He says he cannot stand your neediness. He says he wishes he had never married you." My stomach churned as though her words had turned to knives inside me. "You are lying," I whispered, though even to my own ears the words sounded desperate, hollow, unbelieving. "Daniel, say something, please." My husband raised his eyes briefly, and for one fleeting second I hoped he would finally push back, finally tell her to stop. But all I saw was pity, a look that sliced me more deeply than Olivia's venom ever could. His lips parted slightly, but the words that came out were weak and lifeless. "Rachel, not here. Not like this." My chest tightened as rage and heartbreak clashed inside me. "Not like this!" I repeated, my voice rising hysterical. "Not like this, Daniel. When is the right time to discover that my husband has been betraying me with my sister? When is the right time to learn that the man who swore to love me until death would rather stand silent while I am torn apart?" Olivia's laughter rang out high and cruel, filling the room with her triumph. "He has not loved you in years," she repeated, her tone full of glee. "He only stayed because he felt sorry for you after you lost your babies. That was the only reason." The words were daggers twisting into the deepest wounds of my soul. I felt my knees weaken, my vision blur, but fury steadied me. I forced myself to look at her, my voice trembling with both grief and fire. "How could you, Olivia? You are my sister." Her smirk widened, her eyes narrowing into slits. "Sister, you were always the favorite, the sweet one, the one Uncle Henry adored. Do you think I forgot how everyone praised you while I was left in your shadow? You took everything from me, Rachel. Now, I am taking everything from you." My heart pounded in my chest, the betrayal layered upon betrayal, threatening to break me entirely. But the small kicks inside me, the faint reminder of the daughter who depended on me, gave me strength. My voice hardened as I stared at her. "You will never take her. You will never take my baby." Olivia leaned back slightly, her face twisted into a cruel smile. "We will see," she said coldly. Her hand trailed across Daniel's arm possessively, a deliberate reminder of everything she had claimed. The air in the office grew heavy, suffocating as I realized that I was truly alone, surrounded by betrayal and cruelty, with no one willing to defend me. Yet even as tears burned my eyes, a spark of resolve ignited in my chest. I whispered to myself a promise only my daughter and I could hear. "We will survive this." I turned toward the door, desperate to escape, but Olivia moved with startling speed, blocking my path with her body. "Where are you going, Rachel?" she mocked, her voice laced with venom. "Running away like you always do. That is why Daniel needed a real woman, someone who would not crumble every time life got hard." "Move," I demanded, my voice trembling but firm. Her smile widened, cruel and unyielding. "Make me." Her words hovered in the air like a challenge I was too weak to accept. My pulse hammered in my ears as I clutched the doorframe for balance. My body ached, my stomach contracted painfully, and all I wanted was to get away to protect my baby from the toxic storm swirling around me. Olivia shoved me hard with both hands, sending me sprawling to the cold linoleum floor. Pain shot up my hip as I landed on my side, my breath knocked out of me in one violent rush. My hands instinctively covered my belly as if my arms alone could shield my child. The sharp taste of iron filled my mouth as I bit my lip on the way down. I tried to push myself up, but Olivia loomed above me, her eyes blazing with triumph. "Stay down where you belong," she hissed. And then, before I could react, she drew back her foot and kicked me directly in my pregnant belly. The impact was immediate and brutal, a searing pain that tore through me so violently I screamed. My hands clutched tighter over my stomach, my body curling protectively, but the agony spread like fire. My daughter shifted violently inside a desperate response to the trauma. The fluorescent lights blurred as tears spilled down my cheeks. "Stop, Olivia, please!" I gasped, my voice hoarse with terror and pain, but her face twisted with satisfaction. "This is where you belong," she spat. "Beneath me." Her foot lifted again, poised to strike, when a sharp cry broke through the chaos. "Oh my God, stop!" Nurse Karen's voice rang out panicked and furious. She had opened the door after hearing the crash and now stood frozen for a split second, horrified at the sight before her. Rachel was on the floor, clutching her stomach, Olivia towering above her with fury still etched on her face. Karen lunged forward, her instincts kicking in, and dropped to her knees beside me. She placed a trembling hand on my shoulder. "Stay with me, Rachel. Stay with me." Her other hand pressed her radio frantically. "Emergency in Dr. Carter's office. Pregnant patient assaulted." I whimpered as another wave of pain shot through me, my vision swimming. The sound of my own heartbeat thundered louder than her words. Olivia stepped back, startled by the sudden intrusion, her confidence faltering under Karen's horrified gaze. "What are you doing?" Olivia shouted defensively. She slipped. She fell. Karen's eyes blazed with disbelief. "I saw you! You kicked her!" Daniel, who had been frozen in place like a coward, finally stammered, "Olivia, stop!" His words were weak, useless, barely audible over my cries. "My baby," I whispered, clutching my stomach tighter, tears flooding down my cheeks. "Please help my baby." Karen wrapped one arm around my shoulders, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear in her eyes. "Hold on, Rachel. I have you. You are not alone." Through my haze, I felt her grip tighten on me, her other hand waving desperately toward the hallway. "Someone help! We need an OB team here now." The corridor outside erupted with footsteps as other staff reacted to her call. Olivia backed toward the wall, her bravado cracking as panic crept into her expression. Daniel hovered near his desk, paralyzed, his face pale and useless. The pain in my stomach intensified a ripping sensation that made me cry out in despair. Something warm trickled between my legs. My water had broken. Not yet, I thought wildly. Not now. It is too soon. Karen's voice pressed into my ear, firm and urgent. "Breathe, Rachel. Keep breathing. Help is coming." Her words became the thin thread tethering me to consciousness as agony threatened to pull me under. The room blurred, my body racked with tremors, but I clung to the sound of her voice, the anchor in the storm of betrayal, pain, and terror. "I will not lose you," I whispered to my unborn daughter. "I will not let them take you from me." The hallway outside erupted with hurried footsteps and urgent voices in response to Nurse Karen's frantic call. Within moments, the door burst open and Uncle Henry stormed in, his silver hair disheveled from rushing his face carved with fury. 2 additional nurses followed close behind, carrying emergency kits. The scene froze for a split second under his gaze, me writhing on the floor in agony, my hands locked over my belly, Karen cradling me with desperation in her eyes, Olivia standing rigid by the wall, and Daniel pale and trembling beside his desk. Henry's voice cracked like a whip across the room. "Olivia Morgan, what have you done?" His roar filled every corner of the office, and Olivia flinched, though she tried to hold her ground. "It is not what it looks like." She stammered, her bravado gone, but Henry was already kneeling at my side. His hands, practiced and precise from decades in medicine, pressed against my wrist to check my pulse. His eyes scanning for injuries with the calm urgency of a commander in crisis. "Get NICU here now!" He barked over his shoulder, his tone brooking no delay. The nurses rushed out their radios, crackling as they relayed the emergency. Daniel stepped forward weakly, his voice shaking. "I did not know she would," he muttered, but Henry's glare froze him mid-sentence. "Shut up!" Henry ordered, his voice so cold that Daniel shrank back against the wall like a chastised child. Karen held me upright as waves of pain tore through my body. Blood stained my dress, soaking into the tiles beneath me, and the warm gush between my legs told me what I already feared. My water had broken too soon, far too soon. Uncle Henry squeezed my hand, his voice softer now, cutting through my terror. "Rachel, look at me. Stay awake. We are getting you to delivery right now." I gasped, my breath catching my chest heaving with panic. "The baby," I whispered hoarsely. "Please, save my baby." Henry's eyes met mine with fierce determination. "We will. Just breathe." The two nurses returned with a stretcher, sliding it next to me with swift precision. Karen and Henry guided me onto it, my body trembling violently as another contraction gripped me. Olivia tried to step closer, her hands fluttering uselessly. I did not mean she began, but Henry's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. "Do not take another step, Olivia. You are finished here." His words rang with finality, slicing through her excuses like glass. Daniel pressed against the wall, speechless, his hands jammed deep into his pockets, as if to keep them from shaking. The stretcher rolled out into the corridor, fluorescent lights streaking above me as the team rushed me toward the emergency ward. The sound of Karen's voice hovered near calm but firm, guiding me through ragged breaths. "You are doing so well, Rachel. Almost there." Every contraction felt like fire ripping through my body, but I clung to her words, to Henry's presence at my side. As we neared the operating theater, Henry bent close, his voice steady, though his jaw was tight with rage. "We will take care of you and the baby. You are not alone." His words cut through the haze of betrayal and fear, giving me something solid to hold on to as the doors swung open to the blinding light of the delivery room. When I woke again, the room was hushed except for the steady beeping of monitors and the soft hum of machines. My body ached in every muscle, my throat dry as sand, and my first thought was not of myself but of her. My baby. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Where is she?" Uncle Henry leaned forward from the chair beside my bed, his usually composed face lined with exhaustion. "She is in the NICU, Rachel. They delivered her early, but she is stable, small but strong." Relief crashed over me so hard I nearly wept, though my tears burned with both gratitude and fear. I needed to see her, to touch her, but tubes and exhaustion kept me anchored. Henry placed his hand over mine. "You will soon, but first we need to talk." His voice lowered, controlled, but grim. "This is no longer a family matter. What I witnessed was assault, and it happened in my hospital. Olivia's actions and Daniel's silence carry consequences far beyond broken vows." My chest tightened as his words settled in. Assault. Criminal. Words that suddenly gave shape to the nightmare. Before I could respond, the door opened and a tall woman with sharp eyes entered. Her auburn hair was tied back in a sleek bun, her briefcase tucked neatly under her arm. "Rachel, this is your cousin Sophia Dawson," Henry said. "She is one of the best attorneys in the city. I called her because you are going to need her." Sophia pulled a chair close to my bed, her gaze steady as she studied me. "I am so sorry for what you endured, Rachel. What they did to you is not only immoral, but criminal. We are going to protect you and your daughter." Her words were strong, confident, exactly what I needed to hear, even as my body trembled from weakness. I nodded slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just want my baby safe." Sophia's expression hardened. "And she will be. But you need to understand the gravity of this situation. Olivia's assault is obvious, witnessed by both Karen and Henry, but there is more. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers, sliding them onto the table. Henry crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing. "Tell her." Sophia's voice sharpened. "Daniel purchased a life insurance policy on you 6 months ago, Rachel. $2 million. My heart stuttered. $2 million. On me. I shook my head weakly. I never signed anything. Why would he? My words faltered as realization dawned cold and sickening. 6 months ago, around the time Olivia had started hovering around him at the hospital, around the time I had believed our marriage was finally healing. Sophia's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. He took it out without telling you. The beneficiary is himself. Combined with what just happened with Olivia's assault, this is a pattern of intent that cannot be ignored. I felt my stomach twist with nausea. My husband, my sister, plotting not only betrayal, but my destruction. Sophia continued. We also have reason to believe that your false labor incident last month was not natural. You told the doctors Daniel gave you tea that day. Yes, I whispered, remembering the warmth of the cup he had pressed into my hands, the way he had urged me to drink it all. He said it would calm the contractions. An hour later, I had been doubled over in pain. Henry's jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with fury. If he tampered with her, if he gave her anything unsafe, we will find it. Sophia nodded. We will request toxicology tests on the remaining tea leaves and vitamins. Daniel has access to restricted medications. If we can prove he tried to induce labor early, combined with the life insurance that becomes attempted murder. The words sent a chill down my spine. Attempted murder. Against me. Against my unborn child. My hands shook as I whispered. He wanted us gone. Olivia wanted me out of the way. The room seemed to tilt memories spinning back in rapid succession. Every moment of his distance, every unexplained late night, every trace of perfume. My chest heaved as rage replaced the weakness inside me. How dare they? How dare they gamble with my life, with my daughter's life? Henry squeezed my hand, his eyes fierce. You are not alone in this, Rachel. We will expose them. I nodded through the tears, though a storm still raged in my chest. Sophia leaned forward, her voice low but burning with resolve. They underestimated you. They thought you would break. But you survived, and now they will face the law. I took a deep, shaking breath. For my daughter, I whispered. For Grace. Her name had come to me in the darkest hours, and now it felt like a shield. Grace, my miracle, my reason to fight. Sophia packed her papers neatly. The next step is clear. We file charges, we gather evidence, and we prepare for court. Henry's voice rumbled with iron certainty. I will not allow them near you or the baby again. Security has already been notified. Daniel and Olivia are barred from this hospital effective immediately. The thought of them banished gave me a small spark of comfort, though the road ahead loomed long and treacherous. I closed my eyes, exhausted but determined. They thought they had destroyed me. Instead, they had awakened something stronger than fear. They had given me a reason to fight with everything I had. For Grace, for justice, for myself. The day of the preliminary hearing arrived like a storm cloud, heavy and unavoidable. I dressed carefully in a simple navy dress, my body still sore from the premature birth, but my spirit harder than it had ever been. Grace remained in the NICU, gaining strength day by day, her tiny body fighting with a fierceness that mirrored my own. Uncle Henry stood on one side of me as we entered the courthouse. Sophia Dawson on the other, her briefcase clutched firmly, her eyes sharp with determination. The hallway was already swarming with reporters, cameras flashing as questions were hurled in my direction. Mrs. Carter, is it true your sister assaulted you while pregnant? Do you believe your husband was involved in a plot? My heart raced, but Sophia's voice cut through calm and commanding. No comment. My client will address the court, not the hallway. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was thick with tension. On the other side sat Olivia. Her hair pulled into a tight bun, her eyes flickering with defiance. Daniel sat beside her, jaw set his expensive lawyer whispering furiously in his ear. For a moment, I could almost see the man I had once loved, the one who had promised me a family, but the illusion shattered as he avoided my eyes. When the judge called the case to order, Sophia rose with a presence that filled the room. "Your Honor, what occurred in Dr. Carter's office was not a family dispute. It was a calculated act of violence and betrayal. My client, Rachel Morgan, was assaulted while 8 months pregnant. That assault was witnessed by nurse Karen Lopez and by hospital director Henry Morgan. Furthermore, evidence shows a $2 million life insurance policy taken out by Dr. Carter on his wife without her knowledge, as well as suspicious medical interventions designed to trigger premature labor. This is not a domestic spat. This is conspiracy and attempted murder." Her words struck the courtroom like a thunderclap. Olivia shifted uncomfortably, her defiance faltering. Daniel's lawyer objected, trying to downplay the accusations, painting him as a devoted husband caught in a misunderstanding. But then Nurse Karen took the stand. Her hands trembled slightly as she recounted the moment she opened the door, but her voice grew stronger as she described what she saw. "I saw Olivia Morgan shove Rachel to the ground. Then I saw her kick Rachel directly in the stomach. I called for help immediately because I believed both Rachel and the baby were in grave danger." Her words painted the memory vividly, and I felt the courtroom stir with shock and disgust. Henry followed his voice, calm but unwavering. "I walked into that office moments later and found my niece bleeding and broken on the floor. I saw Olivia standing over her and Daniel paralyzed by silence. In my professional opinion as hospital director, this was not an accident. This was intentional harm. Their testimonies became anchors tying the truth firmly into the record. The defense tried to spin it. Olivia's lawyer claimed she had been provoked, that her actions were rash, not calculated. Daniel's lawyer argued he had been manipulated by Olivia, a victim of her seduction, not a willing conspirator. But then Sophia rose again, this time producing documents. "Your Honor, this is the life insurance policy signed by Dr. Carter, naming himself as the sole beneficiary. This is the record of him accessing restricted medications known to induce labor. And these are emails between Olivia and Daniel discussing what they referred to as a fresh start once the baby was born." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Daniel's face drained of color. Olivia's bravado cracked into panic. The judge's gavel slammed down, calling for order. I sat in my seat, my hands trembling, but inside me something unshakable grew. They had tried to silence me with cruelty, to destroy me with betrayal. But here in this courtroom their lies were unraveling. When it was my turn to speak, I rose slowly, every eye in the room on me. My voice shook at first, but steadied as I looked at Olivia, then at Daniel. "They tried to kill me and my baby. They plotted behind my back, mocked me to my face, and stood silent while I bled. But I am still here. My daughter is still here, and we will not be silenced." The room was utterly silent, except for the scribble of pens from reporters. My statement was short, but it carried the weight of everything I had survived. Outside the courthouse, the reporters swarmed again, microphones and cameras pushing close. This time, I did not hide. I stopped, lifted my chin, and spoke clearly. George and Olivia wanted me gone, but they underestimated me. They underestimated my daughter. We survived. Now they will face justice. The flash of cameras blinded me, but for the first time, I did not shrink away. I felt the world shifting, the narrative no longer one of my shame, but of their crimes. Sophia guided me through the crowd, Henry shielding me from the crush of bodies. Inside me, I carried not only the ache of betrayal, but the fire of survival. This was no longer only my fight. It was for Grace, for every woman told she was powerless, for every victim silenced by fear. And in that moment, as headlines blared about the pregnant betrayal case, I knew we were only just beginning. The trial stretched on for weeks each day, peeling back another layer of lies until nothing was left but the raw truth. Reporters filled every seat in the gallery, cameras clustered outside the courthouse, and the story of Rachel Morgan versus her husband and sister became a headline across the country. I sat through it all, exhausted yet unyielding, my daughter's tiny cries from the NICU echoing in my mind each night as fuel to endure. When the time for sentencing finally came, the courtroom was silent except for the rustle of papers and the steady hum of anticipation. Olivia was called first. She stood in her prison-issued suit, eyes darting nervously, lips pressed thin as her lawyer whispered futile reassurances. The judge's voice cut through the air, calm but merciless. Olivia Morgan, you were found guilty of assault against a pregnant woman and conspiracy. Your actions were not the result of a fleeting lapse of judgment, but a pattern of jealousy and calculated cruelty. You attacked your own sister while she carried life inside her, and you showed no remorse. For these crimes, this court sentences you to 15 years in state prison. Gasps rippled through the audience. Olivia's face twisted in shock, her bravado collapsing into raw panic as guards moved to restrain her. She turned, once her eyes burning into me with hatred, but I did not flinch. Her words no longer had power. Then came Daniel. He stepped forward, his once polished appearance disheveled, his shoulders stooped under the weight of truth. His attorney tried one last desperate plea, painting him as a man manipulated by Olivia, a doctor under pressure, a husband who made mistakes. But the evidence had spoken louder than excuses. The judge's eyes were cold as he delivered the verdict. Dr. Daniel Carter, you were found guilty of attempted murder insurance fraud and conspiracy. You betrayed the oath you swore as a physician, and you betrayed the vows you swore as a husband. You placed financial gain above the life of your wife and your unborn child. For these crimes, you are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for 20 years. The weight of the sentence landed with finality, a gavel cracking through years of lies. Daniel's face drained of color. He turned his head slightly, perhaps searching for a last trace of sympathy in my eyes, but I gave him none. He had chosen silence when I needed protection. He had chosen betrayal when I had given him everything. Now he would live with the consequences. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, reporters scribbling furiously, but for me there was only stillness. My Uncle Henry's hand settled on my shoulder, grounding me. Sophia leaned close and whispered, "Justice is served." Outside, the headlines blared, "Pregnant betrayal case." Ends with harsh sentences. Crowds gathered as I stepped into the sunlight, microphones flashing toward me, voices demanding my reaction. I lifted my chin and spoke clearly. This is not only my victory. This is for every woman who has been betrayed, every victim who has been silenced. Today proves that even when family betrays you, the law can and will protect you. My words spread through the media like wildfire, turning me from victim into survivor, from silent sufferer into a symbol of resilience. That night, as I sat by Grace's incubator, watching her tiny chest rise and fall, I whispered softly, "They will never hurt us again. You are safe now, my love." For the first time since that terrible day in Daniel's office, I truly believed it. 2 months after the sentencing, I finally carried Grace home from the NICU. She was still small, wrapped in blankets like a fragile doll, but her eyes opened wide with curiosity, and her tiny fingers gripped mine with unexpected strength. I walked slowly into the nursery I had once painted with Daniel, the pale yellow walls glowing softly in the afternoon light. It had once been a room of broken dreams, but now it felt like a sanctuary reclaimed. Uncle Henry had insisted on installing extra locks and cameras. Sophia had organized the legal documents to guarantee Daniel and Olivia would never come near us again. For the first time in months, I could breathe. The nights were long filled with the cries of a premature baby and the weight of single motherhood, but I was not alone. Henry visited often, bringing meals and rocking Grace with surprising tenderness. Sophia worked tirelessly, not only closing my case, but pushing for reforms in hospital policies, ensuring that what happened to me would never be repeated in silence. Nurse Karen stopped by too, her presence a reminder of the moment she saved me from Olivia's cruelty. Sometimes I woke drenched in sweat, Olivia's kick, replaying in my mind Daniel's silence like a knife in the dark. But each time I looked at Grace, her tiny chest rising, her stubborn fight to live, I found my strength again. She was not only my daughter, she was proof of survival. Slowly, healing began to weave itself through the cracks. I returned to my graduate studies, determined to finish the dissertation that had been put on hold. The topic seemed clearer now than ever: trauma recovery and post-traumatic growth. Every word I wrote carried pieces of my own journey. The faculty approved my defense with honors, and I accepted a position as assistant professor of psychology. My lectures were not just academic lessons, they were lived experiences turned into guidance for others. Students leaned forward as I told them survival is not just about enduring the storm, but about building a life afterward stronger than what was broken. Outside the classroom, I found new purpose. With Sophia's guidance and Henry's funding, I launched a foundation dedicated to supporting women facing domestic abuse and toxic family dynamics. We provided legal aid counseling and safe housing. The first time I sat across from a trembling young woman, her eyes wide with fear, I reached across the table, took her hand, and said, "I believe you. You are not alone." It felt like redemption. Grace grew stronger with each passing day. By her second birthday, she ran through the park with unsteady steps, her laughter ringing out like bells. She had Daniel's dark eyes, but when I looked into them, I saw none of his cruelty. Instead, I saw resilience, fire, and innocence untouched by his betrayal. Henry became her grandfather figure, Sophia her fierce protector, and Karen her godmother. Together, we formed a chosen family built not on betrayal, but on loyalty and love. Sometimes letters arrived from prison Daniel's handwriting scrawled across the envelopes, but I never opened them. Sophia filed them away as evidence, and Henry burned the duplicates he tried to send through others. Olivia attempted appeals, but each was denied. She would remain behind bars for the years Grace grew into a young woman. They no longer had power over me. One crisp autumn afternoon, I stood before an auditorium filled with survivors and supporters at a conference on domestic violence. Grace sat in the front row on Henry's lap, clapping her small hands together as if she knew this moment mattered. I took a deep breath and spoke. I was betrayed by those who should have loved me most. My sister tried to break me. My husband tried to erase me. But I survived. My daughter survived. And together we built a life from the ashes of their cruelty. The applause rose loud and unrelenting, filling me with warmth. Later that evening, walking home under the glow of street lamps, I whispered to Grace, "The best revenge is not hate. It is living so fully that no betrayal can destroy you." She giggled, not understanding, but someday she would. As the years stretched forward, I found peace in small moments. Grace's laughter, the quiet strength of my lectures, the foundation's success stories. My past no longer chained me. It fueled me. Olivia and Daniel had thought they ended me, but instead, they had given me clarity, purpose, and proof of my unbreakable spirit. One golden evening, I pushed Grace's stroller along the river path, the sun sinking low and painting the water in hues of fire. She held her toy stethoscope, babbling about being a doctor like Uncle Henry. I smiled, my heart swelling with pride and gratitude. We were free. We were whole, and we were stronger than anyone had ever believed. To those listening to my story now, I say this. If you have ever been betrayed, if you have ever been made to feel worthless or disposable, remember that survival is your victory. Justice may come slowly, but it comes, and the life you rebuild afterward can be more powerful than the one they tried to destroy. If you have ever fought back, share your story in the comments because together we remind the world that no betrayal can silence us.